I just want to, you don't have to tell me, but I'm hoping that some of you, or maybe all of you in the room, participated in the survey that we sent out last week. And why we did that really was to see what you wanted to get out of this session. This is the first year that we've had this session. And thank you so many people for coming. We're really interested to see how it goes, if it's something that you'd like to have in the future. And also, anyway, we sent out the survey so we would see a little bit about, some of your ideas. Some of you gave great feedback and lots of ideas for us as we planned the session. We already had it planned, but then we added some things. But I want to give you a little bit of, I'm just going to give you 3 sort of little results of the survey, and then we'll talk about some of the categories as we go through. And this is when we want your feedback as well. We have a panel, and I'll introduce them. Well, they'll introduce themselves in a minute. But we have a panel because in order to have a session, I think we're supposed to have a panel, but we otherwise would, and they're a panel of experts, and we're all of us that you see here. We're going to kind of lead a discussion, and I hope it will be a good discussion because we know the expertise in this room is just dynamic, and we know these are 3 experts who we chose to help lead the discussion, and you'll see that they've had a lot of experience in this field working with direct clients, but I know all of you have too. And I know that because in the survey, again, I don't know who filled it out and who didn't, but in the survey, we had about 60, approximately 60 respondents. And of those 60, at least who filled out the survey, only 2 said they have they currently do not work with direct clients, and then later on they said they'd like to, later on during the survey. So the majority of the people that filled out the survey work with both direct clients and with RMCs. And very interesting to me was, this is an average number. This is not a statistic. I didn't do all kinds of mumbo-jumbo statistical analysis of this. But mostly, across the board, average, half and half direct clients and RMCs, which is awesome because that's kind of where we want to go with a lot of the things we want to talk about related to differences, not one being better than the other, but just how it is working with direct clients in this climate in our industry with things changing so much. So those are the 3 statistics I wanted to tell you. And so now we'll start with the introduction. So I'm Peggy Love, as I said. I'm Ura's strategic consultant for intellectual content. And I think that's a really lofty title for what I do, but I like it. And helping me moderate is Anita Meyer. And Anita is, most of you know, if you've been coming to Ura for the last couple of years, she's a former president and loaded with knowledge. She ran a company that had exclusively, right, 100% direct clients?
100%, yes.
So she's really going to take this ball and run with it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to let the 3 panelists introduce themselves. So on the next slide, we have their names, and our little clicker doesn't work. That's why we have our very important person advancing the slides for us.
That's why I get that. Yeah.
That's why he doesn't get introduced, and if you don't know him, then you just woke up, or you just got here, and this is your first Ura, and you didn't read any of the bulletins. So please, Madalena, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, this is Madalena Micheli from Professional Relo. We are a relocation and immigration service provider based in Italy near Milan. We have been delivering relocation and immigration services for 25 years now. And in terms of turnover sales, approximately 70% of our clients are direct and 30% are via RMCs or other DSPs in other countries.
My name is Sophie.
I work for a professional organizing relocation Consult GmbH. We are located in Frankfurt. We are a DSP and immigration provider with 37 years of experience. And everybody looking at me going, there's no way she's 37. You are correct. I am the second generation and was fortunate enough to be able to enter the business by taking it over from my mother. We do just over 70% direct clients and 30% through RMCs and partners.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Ehrlich, and my company is called Intrepid Relocation International. We are headquartered in New York, and we have, I would say, I'm not great with numbers, so I'd say about 90% to 99% of our clients are direct clients.
Thank you, panel. As you can see or hear from what they just introduced themselves, there are a lot of direct customers still around, and with AMPM I started the company in 1997. Starting the company means finding your first customer, kind of. And that was a direct customer by accident. I was a translator. I helped startup companies, and one company said, "Could you please help me? I've got an expat." An ex what? An expat. Okay, what a discovery. And then you start looking around. First of all, you go to listen to people who've been around. The next thing was talk to Jura, help. Go to the first Jura session in Brussels. I joined in Brussels. I didn't do Paris. And then we started the ABRA, the Belgian Association of Relocation Agents, in 2000, just to get some knowledge and to get some help. And I didn't even know that a global existed. I thought I had invented a new industry. So that's more or less how it happened to me by accident, like so many things in life. Sylvia, where did you get your first customer? How did that happen for you?
Okay, so like yourself, not dissimilarly, I came into this sort of accidentally. I had been an accompanying spouse. I hate the term trailing. I could never picture myself trail. So I was an accompanying spouse, and we moved 7 times in 15 years. When we made our promised last move, the realtor that I worked with had tried to convince me to help others because I had been so organized and planned and did my research, etc. And I thought, that's an interesting idea, but my background's in psychology. I really don't want to show real estate. I have no sense of direction, and I don't do numbers very well. But I tried it, and he said, but just help the transferees that are coming in. So I started that, and what I realized is very quickly is that there was no liaison between the assignees and their companies. So we were receiving the referrals through other real estate companies. And so there was no direct line if there was an issue to be able to say to the company, you need to do X, Y, Z to make this happen. And so I decided to branch out on my own and create a relocation company. I did not know, like Anita, that there was an industry out there. This is 1984. ERC and a lot of other organizations did exist, but I didn't know it. So I started out, and I went to an HR luncheon from the Chamber of Commerce, and I met some people from a company called Ciba-Geigy, and they became my first client. They sent me across the road to their colleagues at AXO, which is now AXO Nobel. They were my second client, and they sent me to Avon, and Avon's been my client since 1988. Wow. So that's how I started.
Fabulous. That's a really nice story. With a lot of accidents, but good accidents, I'd say. What about you, Madalena? You must have started way, huh?
Well, as I said before, I started in 1994, so really in Italy, relocation was prehistory. Nobody knew about that, and I started even before Jura. actually. And actually I started because I've been a traveling spouse myself, so I was probably with my husband in other European countries. And when we moved the last time from Paris to Milan, I had received the relocation support, which I wanted to find in Milan as well. Although I was Italian and I, of course, spoke the language, I was not familiar with the local, the city, etc. And so I went back actually to Corporate Relocations France. My name originally was Corporate Relocations Italia, and it was a network having a few offices in a few countries throughout Europe. And I wanted to learn something from them in order to establish my own company. And they said, why don't you open corporate relocations in Italy? So my first clients arrived through them because basically I had the list of the clients from corporate relocations in France, in the UK, or in Spain, and then I was contacting the same companies in Italy saying, well, you know, you are our clients in France, in the UK, so I'm here to help you in Italy. And then I had to explain that relocation was not something to eat because they really had no clue about what I was talking about, actually. And so, yes, of course, RMCs were not there yet at that time, at least not in Italy. And so a lot of cold calls and trying to get in clients. And actually, I got my very first client, Nokia, by coincidence as well, because I had the next boyfriend who told me, who was living there and told me, you know, there are a lot of people coming from Nokia. He was a real estate man, and said, but they are asking me to find the property, but then also to find an international school, to do the documents, to register here and there. I don't know how to do that. And so that's how I started. I got this client through him, and then from there I had the opportunity to have a huge experience in a few years, and then to grow up.
It is a bit of a different question for you, Sophie. Like you said, you're the next generation. So maybe your mother remembers how she went to her first customer, but I'd like to turn the question a bit around to you. And have you, since you took over, what is it now, 2 years ago? 4. Oh my God, time flies. 4 years ago. So have you approached your first direct customer, your own first direct customer in those 4 years, and how was that?
So first of all, my mom told me the story of being a trailing spouse and funding your company was really specific to her case. I'm now hearing it's not, so I need to go back and do some family evaluation on how this all came along. Yes, I have. I approached, in Germany we have, we're in the fortunate situation that there are quite a lot of German and non-German companies that work directly with fortunate people like us. And yes, we approach them directly, and I think, if I think back to 1982, which I can't, it was mostly being at the right place at the right time and being early enough in the development of the industry in Germany, and signing on clients that have stayed with us. And now, of course, it's just...
Okay. Thank you. Before going to the next question, would somebody in the audience please share with us a similar thing? What happened to you? When did it happen? The mic is coming towards you. Are there heroes in this audience who want to tell us their story?
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite the same situation, as in I wasn't a trailing spouse. I was the expat. I moved from Ireland to Saudi Arabia originally, anyone who was at Ignite last year. And I moved into Russia and moved around Russia 5-6 times without any assistance at all. And it's only when I moved into the real estate sector and I realized that relocation is a business. So about back in 2005-06 and 2007, I opened my own business to try and share some of the experiences that I'd had doing that.
Thank you.
Order.
Hi everyone, my name is Maika Bellew. I have Fluency Corp Global Language Training. And for me, I desperately wanted to learn Spanish. And so I took a job teaching English in Mexico. And so I was relocating myself. and quickly realized that it was going to be the hardest year of my entire life. And I was the one of 2 Americans in the entire very small town. And so after that experience, I took what I would need to fit in and be able to speak to people there, and came back to the US and started searching for people to make them feel comfortable in the United States based on my experience relocating. And my first client, accidentally of course, was Samsung. And after they started working with me, they signed on more. And then a company from Spain a few years later called and said, we have 120 employees that need private one-on-one classes, 2 hours each a week. And they said, you're a company, right? You're not one person. And I lied my butt off and said, absolutely. And I became a company that day.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marta and I'm from Mozambique. Actually, I want to share our experience that worked exactly the other way around. We got Brookfield and Wakard with direct clients. Rio Tinto at the moment was in Mozambique, and through we were a very small company at the time, and because we always say Maputo is a very small community and we can't afford to make mistakes, and through our they knew who we were and they knew our work, and by providing a good service and starting with an orientation tour or something small, they got to know us better, and then they recommended us to the RMCs. Same happened with Wakard, for example, that one also the oil and gas companies that in the same way knew how we worked and how we were professional. Again, we can't afford to make mistakes, and that's how we got to the big ones, RMCs.
That's great.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else?
Maybe we go to the next question and then throw it back in there.
Okay, sure.
I think that the speaker that we had yesterday, he talked about the fact that you should have confidence. And that's what you had when they asked you if you had a multiple large company, right? Well, my experience was my second company that I visited, that I started with, was Axo. And the first thing that happened when I went into him was he said, we're doing a group move of 60 people from Chicago to New York. Can you handle that? And I said, of course. I went into the parking garage afterwards and went, what is a group move? And then I had to call a whole bunch of people that I had met and said, what is a group move? Can you help me? Have you ever done one? And that's how you make it happen.
So I'm just going to add, thank you. And we sort of were hoping this would happen, and I've got a watch, so I'm watching the time carefully, but it's great because one sort of, in keeping with a sort of theme we didn't know was going to happen at this conference, I think, is the power of storytelling and narrative. And so that something made you think of that. And the lying your butt off made me, and I'm an American, that's great. And
it's confidence, not lying.
I know, but I had, and what I didn't mention before, because these guys are far more interesting than I am, but I did have a company of my own until 2008, and then I stayed in the industry for a while before I got my cool, awesome job with a nice title with Eura. But I did have a destination services company in the US, and when we first started in 1994, this is what made me think of it, we would sort of sit around with no clients, of course, but waiting for them. And really my first client was a direct client, but then I quickly moved on to working with RMCs, but that's a whole other story. And then I did have a mix. But we used to say, watching, looking at the telephone, because we had regular, telephones then, the best thing that could happen is the phone could ring and somebody could offer us 200 jobs, and then we'd go, ugh. And the worst thing that could happen is the phone would ring and somebody would offer us 200 jobs. But I think probably everybody in this room has been through that, and it's both scary and exciting. So anyway, thank you for saying that. So, okay, my turn to ask the questions, and hopefully we'll continue doing this because we do want to hear from you, and thank you very much for participating. So now I'm going to move on to something a little bit more, maybe not technical, but a little bit more defined. So, and again, these questions that we're asking, there's not that many of them, are coming from the results from the survey. So we picked out some of the categories that we thought were the answered the most times in sort of similar ways. So I'll start with Sophie this time. So what is your strategy, or how do you handle, customizing or developing programs and services for a client if maybe you don't already have that need? How do you feed that need of one of your existing clients, or just a new client that needs a different kind of service a program than you already have?
So I'm already really excited about what Sylvia is going to say about this, because I think that our answers are all going to be really different. I strongly believe in being as flexible as you can with your programs and what you offer, and also with the contents within a program. You might have a client that has a very different need for their employees than another corporate. If anybody ever asked you to go somewhere where you necessarily, at this point in time, don't have a representative, just go there and do it. Make sure that what you do is good, and if you get a request from what one of your direct clients needs, try and feed their need rather than conveying to them what you can do. So try to figure around what they need and cater to that, rather than asking their program to cater to what you can offer them.
Great. So I'm debating who to go to next, because I know we had a great session yesterday. I think let's go to Madalena next, and then we'll know what Sophie meant by waiting for Sylvia's answer.
Well, what we do and what we used to do since the very beginning is to create and structure our services mainly based on the market where we were working. I mean, the difference that I realized years after when I started to work with RMCs as well was that you received their scope of work, their services and packages which you had to quote. Having started to work with direct clients, I had to structure my own services, which were mainly based on the type of market and how easy or difficult it was to find properties for rent, or to go through a lease negotiation, or how difficult or easy it is to hook up utilities. So I think that it is a great advantage, because you can create your own scope of work and create your fees according to how you know that the work is going to happen. But then immediately after, it's very important to, as was said right now, to adapt and to tailor your services based on the client that you have. And we basically, what we do is to understand very, very closely the type of client that we are about to work with, or the prospect. And I think there are very quickly 4 categories that we figure out. There is the client who never had international mobility before, and maybe they just starting to have because of a merger or acquisition. So they are really virgin from that point of view. And this is great, because you can consult them, you can help them really creating their policies, and because they don't know nothing, and they really rely on how you can help them. Or there are the clients who, for example, are going through a change of policy. So they were managing relocation internally, and then they decided to outsource. This is not really happening any longer nowadays, but it was happening quite a lot in the past. And so this is another scenario where it's important then to adapt your services, and considering that they are normally, assignees are passing from a full service where the company is doing everything to a 2-1 day on finding with a precise scope. So they talk to each other. I went out every day for 1 week, and why are you having just 1 day housing? Because of course when the company changes, because they want also to reduce cost and have something more specific. Or there are the clients coming to you because they have been working with another DSP and they are not happy with it. And what I understood during these last 25 years is that very often is not the DSP, okay, everybody can work and did something not properly, so that certainly can happen to everybody, but very often the more the client is, let's say, talking badly about the other DSP, the more it is a challenging client who has unreasonable expectations, and instead of reflecting, that was at least my experience, on their expectations and to try to align them with the market, they find it's easier to jump from a DSP to another, and they will always find somebody saying yes just to get the client, and then to move to another one because their expectations there were not met. And another factor which I learned on my skin was to consider whenever there is a move, the type of move, because in my experience, it happened many, many years ago, and then recently again, but then I had learned, we had a move in Italy, so they were Italians from Milan to Rome, but the office in Milan was actually closing, so people didn't have any choice. And first of all, I didn't consider that people from Milan hate living in Rome and vice versa, so they didn't want to move at all. And second thing, they had no choice. So they were accepting the assignment, and of course they were going through home finding, but not even the Vatican's was big enough for them, because they were actually looking for another job, and they were just taking time in order to be able not to move to that city. So in that case, the mistake was that I had underestimated that. I had quoted very low fees because I thought that it would have been easier, which was not at all. So the most important thing is to get to know the prospect very, very well and to understand what is coming from, basically.
Great. So I think that tees it up quite nicely for Sylvia to answer the same question. What do you do about customized programs if you're asked, or how do your programs work?
Well, our programs can be customized any way that the client needs it, but it's based on our flat fee. We have a flat fee. We don't change our fee. Our clients all know that. Everyone knows that. We stick to our flat fee. We do whatever is needed within that flat fee structure. We win some, we lose some, but we keep to our flat fee. Our clients appreciate that because when they're trying to budget hiring somebody and figuring out what the costs are going to be, they don't have to call us each time and say, based on this profile, do you think they need 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 6 days? They just know it's going to get done, and they already have the number. So the number is not an issue. It's a flat fee. It's a non-negotiable flat fee.
This is the part we all love.
Collective intake of breath.
Yeah.
Collectively take a breath, right. Having said that, what I will say is there have been time to time with our clients where we've had someone who has not really needed the normal scope of services or assistance, and we will arbitrarily on our own call the client and say, this person did not really need the scope of who we are. We are sending you back a credit memo or a credit, however you want it. So we do try to stay very honorable in terms of what we're doing. It's just not fair when that happens. You could have a young single person who decides they don't need anything. They're just going to room with a friend, and they already have lived in that city before, and they don't really need to. They don't need help with the normal services that an expat would need. Therefore, we just feel that that's really been, our services have been underutilized, and that's not fair. But we do stick with a flat, non-negotiable fee.
Or another thing you could do is tell the company to keep the money in case you have the chance to work with a high-profile, somebody or other like a prince.
Well, we've had some of those, but
I know.
No,
That's
we've
a little
actually
bit of an
had-
inside joke.
Right, but we had a very, very high-level senior person who only wanted to work with me. And as I said from the beginning, I'm not a numbers person. That's how we got to a flat fee to begin with. I don't want to keep track of numbers, ever. But this gentleman, and they started calling him my boyfriend, he only wanted to talk to me at a very, very senior level. To give you an idea of how senior level he is, to bring him to the United States from his home country, which I won't mention right now, but he's very high profile, and he does deal with royal family a lot. He got a $15 million sign-on bonus just for coming. That's aside from everything else. So they said, well, what will it take for you to do? I said, you don't want me handling him day to day. You really want my team who knows the areas, the places, they're there. I don't have that kind of time. No, he wants you to be the lead on this. Then I said, our flat fee as a monthly retainer. I thought for sure they'd say no. They said, sure. I went, okay. I guess I'm on board. So we do get those from time to time. It's rare, but normally if it is, part of our reputation is that we do work with a lot of senior level people. Most clients, if they have the mid to lower level people with an RMC or with others, they still prefer to have our white glove, high level service, whatever it takes, modified, no checking off boxes, it's do what needs to be done, service level. And so the flat fee is the flat fee.
Super. Very good. So does anybody else have does anybody else have a program like that, or would anybody like to contribute?
I'd like to add that it's something that I've seen changing through time as well. Whereas in the 20 years of relocation company that I went through, in the beginning it was packages. There was the smaller package, the medium package, the large package, and if a prince came along, there was the red carpet package.
That's us.
But with time and with more young people moving and furnished apartments, and some of them didn't need a work permit anymore, less immigration and stuff like that, we had to invent an a la carte package, a kind of pick and pay. I only need this. And we try to explain to people, if you take a package, it's like you go to the restaurant and you take the menu of the day. It's gonna be cheaper than if you take a la carte and pick one, because then you can't do it all in one go, and it'll be more extensive. Does anybody have anything to add to that? What's your experience with packages, with services? What do the customers want now? Is it different from what they used to ask?
Negotiable fees?
Yeah. Does anybody have a non-negotiable fee? No?
No?
Does anybody have any questions about any of our programs or how they could relate to your company?
Did you make the prince your boyfriend?
The prince? No. He was too young for me. I was hoping that Shay would.
How often do you increase your flat fees?
We adjust them from time to time. They're not done annually at all. We play with what we see is happening in the economy and with corporations at the time. So our fees have not gone dramatically high. From 2000 to now, our fees have maybe gone up about 35%. But don't quote me because I don't do numbers. But about that, it's really been a slow rise because some companies just can't do it. Others we have contractual commitments for 2-3 years at a time, and with those, and depending on the volume, we're not going to do anything that's going to go crazy. But we do feel that it's fair to have the same fee across the board, because if we ever had several of our clients sitting in a room and they compared notes, we want to make sure that the notes say that they're all paying the same fee.
What does the fee include?
Whatever it takes. So it depends on the client. We have some clients that are small. We get mover evaluations and we oversee the removals. We take care of the utilities, area orientation, school information, whatever is needed to make that particular situation. If it's a single person, I was telling an example yesterday of someone, we had a young single gentleman who had looked at, I think it was 30 or 40 properties and still hadn't found anything, and the company wanted him to make a decision. So we called our consultant and said, could you please find out what's going on? We gotta drill this down. He's only got 24 more hours in the city to make his decision. She took him out for a late night glass of wine, and turned out that he was from an Eastern European country and had never left home. He was still living at home. So he was having a hard time making a decision because he didn't know how to. So she went, aha, and she happens to be originally from Austria, so she really gets it. She went, aha, she took him out the next day. What they did that night over wine is they filtered down to 5 properties, and then she went back out with him with the real estate agent, and they narrowed it down, he got a property. So it really depends on who it is and what what services they're going to need. If they need driver's licenses, we do that. If they need special medical resources, we provide those. It's literally whatever it needs. My feeling has always been there's no one size fits all. It's really like each assignee is like a fingerprint. None are the same. So they all have different needs.
But it's like a number of days that you calculate internally?
No, I don't work by days. That's numbers again. I don't do numbers.
Okay.
It could be 3 days, it could be 5 days, it could be 6 months. They could come in and they could start, and then their family doesn't show up for 3 or 4 months later, and we have to pick up after that. It could be anything.
But they pay in advance.
I have a
Yeah,
follow-up.
they do pay in advance.
I was going to ask that. So when do you define that the service is complete?
The service is complete when our consultant does the final reporting. Usually that's within, again, depending on the assignment situation, that could be 3 months after we start, it could be 6 months after, it could be a full year. We do stay with them through their first year. We're available for whatever they need. So that's part of what we do as part of our service for them. But I have to say, we had somebody that 18 months after had a serious problem with a child, and our consultant just went out of her way 100%. She went because they had no relatives or anybody immediate around, she went every afternoon to stay with the child so the mother could go home and do things with her other children and get things settled and straightened for about 2 weeks. And she did that voluntarily on her own, and that was way after our service level had ended. But that's just if you have the right people dedicated to helping, what I tell our team is they're all glorified social workers who just get paid better. Our team gets paid very well. Without giving you lots of numbers, our team gets 40% of our gross, plus expenses. So we get really good people.
I'm going to just add something. This just came to my mind, and thank you very much, all of you. That's a lot of great information. I think this comes under the category of customizing services, and I mentioned before, I don't really want to talk about the company that I had a long, long time ago too much, but it just occurred to me while listening that even within the confines of a program, my company kind of got some traction working with RMCs, and then I started adding some direct clients, and that was interesting because then I realized I had a little bit of flexibility to design some programs that would fit with the client need. And in some cases, I think it's an advantage, and this kind of came up during in the survey. I'm kind of going back to the responses that I read from the survey about advantages of working with direct clients, and in a real consultative way, and this is going to be part of the next question, but having to do with customizing programs, we were asked by a really great direct client that we had to create a real whole new program that didn't really exist. It was really a hybrid, and I can say this, it was a hybrid between destination services and education consulting, but not the full-blown, real hands-on, real expensive, real consulting. But we were challenged to create a service that was in between, a kind of on the education side for the children, for finding the right schools. And this particular company paid for private schools for the children in the United States. So that was a whole other, above and beyond, is the public school in this neighborhood good where I'm going to find a really great house. So that's all I really just wanted to say, that that flexibility really, it gave me a whole lot of pleasure because education is really my background. But, I was able to hire somebody actually from a big organization in Washington, D.C., who had led the education department there, and I kind of wanted to do that anyway, but it was a great catalyst to be able to create a whole new service. So that fits a little bit, but anyway, thank you. Thanks.
Which brings us to the next question that was asked in the survey. From what you've heard so far, I think it's obvious that to be able to develop a customized service for direct customers, they don't always necessarily need the cheapest service, nor necessarily the fastest service, but they often want the best. And they're willing to make a little bit more of a contribution to that. But the condition to be able to work with them is that they want a strategic partner. They want somebody they trust. I'm happy to say that after those famous 20 years, I still have friends in the HR people from those companies. That's how far the trust can go. Of course, you have to put your limits. You can't go to all the barbecues, but the level of trust and the level of confidence is important. They need to know that you can do what they want you to do. So, Sophie, I'm sure that you've had the best of educations from Claudia to maintain, in your case, mostly the trust that she established. How is that? How do you do that? How do you make it work and continuously make it work?
We discussed this yesterday, and I'm going to steal it from you, Sylvia. I'm so sorry, I don't have enough smart lines on my own. Is that you need to avoid noise. You need to make sure... No noise. You need to make sure that your direct client has as little necessity to deal with you as possible, because in many ways they view you as an external arm of their own HR department. The less they hear, the better. If there is noise, make sure that they know from you first before they hear from the assignee where it went wrong. Yeah, so it's really important to be incredibly reflective, to be very, very efficient in escalation procedures, to not only say, ooh, we have a problem, what are we going to do, but to say, we have a problem, this happened, this is my plan, this is what we're going to do about it, simply so that they also within, even if they're a smaller organization, they have their own escalation levels within HR. They need to report to people, so that's really important. Furthermore, I think what works really well for us in Germany is that we are very, very proactive with little special reports, whether that's quarterly, on how many people have you moved, what are your top nationalities, what were the troubles that are faced, what things do we need to address, or Brexit is happening, do we need to come and give you guys an in-house training on what's happening even though we don't know, or in Germany or Europe we now have the ICT card, and be super knowledgeable, take the effort to gain knowledge in areas so that you can convey it to your direct clients and ensure that they know where to find you when they need you. So whenever they have something going on internally, they might be reviewing their global mobility policies, offer your help. Be proactive in saying, we can help you think about this, we can help you find solutions that will help you cater to your people. Even though in the first sense it might not be, you might not get paid for it, but if you have a direct client that's very loyal to you and that feels that they value the partnership, the return will come.
Mm-hmm. Madalena, you agree that you have to be small enough to keep it personal and to keep it confidential feeling towards the HR, yet big enough to be able to do almost everything that the globals do and be there IT-wise and be there reactive in all the different questions they have. Do you agree?
Well, in principle, I agree. Then, of course, we have to be small and enough, but at the same time be able to meet clients' expectation. And as Sophie said, we need to be ready to provide unpaid consultancy all the time. And direct clients needs you to be active and reactive, and for sure wants firstly that you keep assignees out of their door, so that no complaints, no noise, etc. I would say that, of course, we perfectly know that big clients will go through RMCs, because even if you are a large DSPs, but generally speaking in our industry we are all pretty small, and big clients are working for companies able to initiate immigration and relocation and household goods and taxes and expense management, so you have to pay for the schools, for the estate agencies, for the rentals, and of course this is something that normally DSPs cannot face. So we need to try to strategically find those companies who are not smaller companies, of course, not requiring this type of services, and try to really be available. I mean, I don't think there is the magic solution, but just to be there when they need us and to be ready again to provide consultancy, to keep them informed whenever there is a new law, a new regulation, something, a new trends in your market. Or, for example, if, I don't know, you see what other clients do, and maybe other clients have a smart solution, and you can bring them generally to other companies saying, why don't you do that? Because the trend is to change, or to, in the past, for example, in Italy, all the lease contracts were in the company names. Now the trend is that they are taking in the assignee's name for several reasons that I'm not going to explain. So be ready to, and even to be there and to inform them in advance about whatever is happening. And yeah.
So very proactive. You think for them and you try to come with solutions before they know that there's a problem, kind of.
And if I can add, don't say no. So if somebody comes to you, if one of your direct clients comes to you and says, I really need you to do my expense management, and you put down the phone and you're like, holy, how are we going to do this? Don't tell them, oh no, sorry, we're just not going to do that, full stop. But say, okay, I can't do that for you, but you have this option, and would you like me to investigate? Or is there anything we can do to help to ensure that, that they feel that you're still giving them the proactive need, even though you yourself may not be able to cater for that exact solution?
So you pretend you're busy and you tell them, can I call you back tomorrow? And then you spend the white night trying. Sylvia, Sophie stole your no noise.
It's okay, I have others.
Can you?
I have others.
Can you bring us a fantastic example in your scrapbook of fantastic ideas and things you lived through? Give us a no noise example, a good one.
Oh.
This now shows we didn't train for this, you know?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have to think back in my scrap. I have a lot, but some I might not want to mention. What I would say, though, is piggybacking what Sophie just said, is one of the things that's wonderful about Eura as well is there's a lot of different service providers that are here. And getting to meet and know them and understand the services they offer and developing partnerships so that with clients, when they have a specific request and they say, can you do this? We can say, we don't do it, but we have someone we can partner with to do it for you, and we can create a direct pass-through. So what we do, for example, with removal companies and with other providers, whether it's expense tracking, or we have sometimes, in the US, we have properties that have to be funded at closings, and we're talking millions of dollars. So we have a partner that does that for us through that, but I've said to them, this is not us, this is going to be them, but we will bill it through. And I said the partner that we use for that is actually someone that a lot of the RMCs use. Here's an example for something. I said, but I always am transparent, because I feel that when we're dealing with clients, as transparent as we can be is very important, because again, that continues to build the trust. Sure enough, the RMC that had been handling this for them in the past was using this same company as their back door, but never revealed it to the client. But the other part of that is what we do is we just direct pass through it. But we're always transparent. We don't say this is our company. Our company is not doing this. We are not Intrepid expense tracking. It's ABC company doing the expense tracking on behalf of your company through Intrepid. That keeps it a little bit saner, clearer, and it's just a value added that we're giving to our clients. So that's one thing. In terms of no noise, we have a client, her favorite expression has always been, I love it, but I modified it. Her expression is, you don't want the assignees to know how the sausage is being made. Okay, they just want to eat the sausage. So our role is to keep everything as smooth as possible. And my example of that is the duck. I always say, when you look at a duck swimming, what you see is this beautiful duck sailing across the water. What you don't see, unless you go underwater, is all these feet that are moving to get that duck looking like it's smoothly sailing across that water. We're the feet. We're those feet. That's our role, is to be those feet, and for that assignee and client to be the duck sailing on top of the water. That's our role, that's our goal. And our branding is no noise. That is who we are, and we want that to be the sailing that goes on. When you have an issue, we've had things, I mean, we had a situation where we had an assignee who went out of our network and used a real estate agent that was not through us. The agent was creating all kinds of issues and problems. We went back to the client and said, look, here's going to be a problem. There's going to be a delay in their moving in. There's going to be a delay in this. We don't know if they're going to be able to do the walkthrough properly, to have for dilapidations at the end. Here's all the issues that we have. So we need your support to be able to have our consultant override this agent to make things happen. And then after that, we went back to them and said, here's what's going to happen in the future. We've now had 3 situations where executives have gone on their own because somebody recommended somebody who recommended somebody, and we've had nothing but issues. Here's the policy for us. If they go outside of the network of the agents that we have, who are also providing a discount to you through us, because we make sure that whoever we're working with gives the best price to our clients and we don't add on to it. So that's another way that our flat fee works, is because we don't keep adding. If they're going to go outside the network, we will not fund it. So what we do for that particular client is we advance the realtor fee, we sometimes advance first month's rent and security. If they go outside of our network, it's too difficult for us to chase after them to get the documentation we need, everything else we need. We're not going to waste our time on that. So outside the network, they don't get funded. It's amazing how they've all stayed inside the network ever since. Really, it makes a difference, because once they're told, look, if you want to advance, and we're talking $10,000, $20,000 a month rents, you want to lay it out on your own and the security out on your own, the broker's fee, be our guest. But if you're going to go out the network, we're not chasing those realtors. So that's some of the things we do. We try to keep it simple, we try to keep it smooth, but our goal is to make sure that the client, if there is an issue, they get called right away, exactly like Sophie said, exactly like that. They need to know there's an issue, we need to be prepared. We found out through one of our assignees, a young couple, fresh, newly married, newlywed, that their entire shipment, the removals company did not let the client know. They let the couple know that their shipment from Asia Pacific had gone off, their cargo box had gone off the ship, and so somewhere in the ocean.
Oh, God.
And they lost everything. We called the client and said, we had just spoken to so-and-so and their wife, and we just heard that they have this problem. They have rental furniture right now. Would you like us to extend the rental furniture? How do you want to work it? What's the insurance? And they said, what? What happened? And we said, this is what we were just told. They have none of their furnishings, none of their wedding gifts. It's all gone. So then we work with them to help that. So whatever you can do to keep it smooth, whatever is needed. I mean, we've had, our team has done, somebody went to get married, and because they needed to, thanks to the US government. And so our team said, they're doing nothing special, they're just going to City Hall. Should we do something? I said, sure. Let me fund a limo, pick them up with, and they were going to be and she was going to be the witness. Get a limo. She decorated the limo with white flowers and this and that, and took them out to lunch, so that they had a little special event. When he saw how that was done, he went back and put on a sport jacket. He was going in just a shirt to his wedding. So we tried.
So I think you just heard the best description of how do you position yourself as a strategic partner, and not a supplier. Of course, we're all suppliers of services, but being a strategic partner. Thank you so much. Those were great examples of, little things that go on in your life every single day. I know. So thank you. Does anybody have anything to add to that? We have our trusty mic runner. I think that's what you call it, the mic runner. A walker. He's trying to get, and please, somebody allow him to come back there, because he's trying to get more steps today on his exercise calculator on his Apple Watch. Okay. Well, I think hopefully everybody agrees that being a strategic partner is important, no matter who our client is, really. It's just the best way to be. So several of you have already touched on this, so I'm going to ask the question to each of you, and I'm going to start with Madalena. But so just expound on it a little bit. And this question has to do with if one of your clients asks you for being able to provide services in an area that in which you currently do not have coverage, you know, what is your strategy? What do you do? What are some tips about, well, just how you do it in your company? How would you add to your the way you can provide services if it's outside of your current coverage area?
Well, it really depends on the clients, first of all, because if is a client is an important client of ours, and the majority of the business arriving is in destinations which we already cover, and then in a sudden yes for remote locations, of course we would do that, even if it will be a loss in terms of profit. Of course, you do cover that because of the relationship and because you want to keep your client. So we do that. On the contrary, if it's a prospect, for example, or if we are required, generally speaking, a remote locations which we do not know, where we do not have information about, we consider what to do. Clearly, if it is a large group move, you get structured and organized and you start up something in the remote locations. But sometimes it was, just one move. And my adagio has always been that it's better to say no rather than delivering a poor service. I understand that this way you lose the opportunity and you lose the client. But what I think is that if you are going to deliver a poor service, for sure at that point you will lose the clients anyway. So what we've seen in the past that I was very sincere and I said, sorry, I don't cover that location. I don't feel confident I can provide the high quality level I'm used to. And then the client said, okay, I understand, but then he came back with new assignees in the locations which I already covered. So at the end, but it's something that I don't think there is one solution for all situations. So clearly something that needs to be evaluated.
Sophie, what would you do, or what do you do?
So I don't say no. I would, if it was in a location that was close enough to us to send somebody, even though the core knowledge wouldn't be there, I would very transparently tell my client, you have this one-off move here. I'm really happy to do this for you with my own team. I'll send somebody just so that they also know that you're going out of your way to make it work. If it was in a completely remote, or not remote necessarily, but if it was in a location where you don't have your own presence, use your Jura colleagues. There's a reason we're here. There's some amazing companies. We tend to prefer also to work with companies that also carry the quality seal, because we know that they've been certified, we know that their ethics and their values are right. And it's also a really, really nice option for collaboration and for giving one of your partners the work. And I think that there are very many great companies here, and for us also, we also use, and you might want to call them competitors or frenemies or whatever the cool words are right now, but we also use other companies in Germany, and I don't in any way consider that a problem, simply because we all do business together better than we do it against each other.
Can I just make a quick comment on that?
Thanks,
Peggy.
please.
It's a very
Yay!
I've actually got a meeting at 3:30 with Peggy and another one of our experts to develop a module. Well, we did develop a module about 6 years ago called Managing Assignments Internationally, which was to enable, just a bit of context, 50% of Euro members when last polled do more than 50% of their work, or 50% or above of their work with direct clients. So it's a huge part of the work of the Euro membership. So we developed this module about 6 years ago, and we're going to bring it back in now and put it up on the Academy, because obviously, as many of you have commented to us over the years, the conference has gone more in the direction of supply chain examination than it has on direct clients. So we're going to talk about this. This will be online before the end of the year. You clearly will be involved, so thank you very much in advance, and not that you knew.
So Sylvia.
Yeah, not to overstate this too much, but we do work with our partners that we've met throughout, and so whenever there is a need and a client has a need in a particular city or country, we try that we don't have our direct coverage. We try to make sure that we as knowledgeable about it as possible. We try to, if it is something very unique, we have several clients now with business that we get not all the time, but quite regularly to India. We did not know India, and it's a very different functioning country than what we're used to. And so Shana went out there to India, and she spent 15 days there, going to the different cities, meeting with the different people, getting to understand the areas, so that when we get a client and all of a sudden we get an itinerary from our partner that says they're going to go at 10 o'clock to look at this property and 1 o'clock to look at another property, and she goes, wait a minute, that's never going to work with the traffic patterns. So at least we have that available to us. We also have had requests. I had a request for, like Sophie says, we don't say no. We had a request for Bossier City, Louisiana. And I said, sure. Got off the phone and went, where the heck is Bossier City, Louisiana? Now, I'm a Canadian. I'm not a native US, but I think even how many Americans are there in the room? How many know where Bossier City, Louisiana is? Thank you very much. That's not fair. You're close to there. You get it. You get it. So what we had to do was we used colleagues and friends that we knew that were in the Louisiana area and said, after I looked it up on a map, and said, who do you recommend that can help us with this? Then we spent a half a day on the phone with that person, going over our model, our style, mentoring them, and being there one-on-one to make sure it got done. But we got Bossier City, Louisiana done with a spouse that needed a work permit, with all the other things that happened. The one odd thing, I'll tell you, this is very funny. Is it okay if I have a minute for this?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, this is very funny. So the gentleman himself she got her social security number as a spouse, an accompanying spouse. His social security number wasn't coming through. And our gal there, she was so accommodating, and she was really good, really good. If you ever need someone in Bossier City, call me, I'll tell you. She actually offered to drive him to Dallas, which is the closest headquarters for Social Security, to try to find out what the problem was. And then jokingly, I said, well, you know, his name, it's an Irish name. They were coming from Australia, but he had a very strong Irish name that was the same as one of the Sinn Féin leaders. So I said, I'm wondering if they've got his mistaken identity, because we had that once, someone from Quebec coming in. We had a mistaken identity situation. She said, well, you know, he put himself down as a demolitions expert. And I said, he did what? And she said, I said, he is the general manager. Why couldn't he just use his title? So I called the client back, because it's a company that deals with dynamite and mining and all that stuff. I called the client back in Denver, and I said, you need to get your immigration people on this, because there's nothing more we can do, and I'm not sending her to Dallas. They need to fix this back wherever and let them know it's not him. Within 3 days, he got his card. So these things happen, but we try to make it so that we have great partners, and whoever is a good partner for us, we're very loyal, and hopefully it works back the same way.
What I wanted just to add is that, for example, we always use partners. We do work with partners in Italy, for example. It happened already in locations which we do not cover. However, also considering the GDPR and, for example, the GQS, we are quality certified, so you have to guarantee that all your suppliers follow certain directions. So again, when working with partners, we need also to take into consideration these aspects. And sometimes there are really places where it's, I mean, in our experience, it was really impossible to guarantee this level of...
You know, in keeping, do you have something else?
Well, I was just going to go back to that whole notion of being able to control your outbound work. So, you know, you've got a great client who trusts you implicitly and wants that work to be carried out somewhere else. This is what we're dealing with in that module. But the whole point, part of the point of the quality seal was to give that level of consistency of service across the network, so that, in a way, you can almost act as a network, as your own RMC, because you know all the people you've met over years and years and years. There's trust, there's integrity, all of that stuff is within the network, and that's powerful for our members.
It is. We're lucky, and I think this was our. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, great. Because that's what I was going to ask about. If somebody had something else to add.
Yes, hi. I'm from corporate locations in Greece, and I would like to say something relevant, not to a service when clients ask you for a remote service, but what happens when clients ask you for a service that you've never really delivered, but you can deliver. This is a good opportunity to use your Jura network as well, because a lot of times it has happened to me that the client came and I had no idea how to really describe the service and to be proactive and think of all the different factors, to really explain the steps and to be sure that I'm really describing what I'm going to deliver and I'm not missing something. And that's where my Jura fellow colleagues helped me by telling me, it has happened to me, and watch out this, and it was very good.
We all mentioned to each other.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole point of this, one of the points of this session. Thank you for saying that we want to learn as much as we can and hear the stories from you, all the participants, as much as we can. Somebody else?
It was just so fascinating when you saying that. I know what Sophie will say. We never say no.
No, I was actually there's this saying that says it's not about being better, it's about being better faster. And that really resonates with what you said about the fact that if you have to do something that you've never done before, learn about it fast. And I think that generally with the group of people we are here, and I'm just going to get carried away a little bit, so I'm really sorry, Peggy. But when I came here 4 years ago, I was kind of aghast by the fact that there was so many great people here, but there was some people that said, "Ooh, the RMCs," and some people said, "Oh, you don't work with them," and "Oh, what are you doing?" And I went home on the first evening and I went, "Wow, I find that so upsetting in a way, because everybody here has the right to do what they feel they need to do. And if you yourself don't know why that is, then there's other issues, but they don't have anything to do with the people around you." And I think that everyone here should be very proud of what they are doing within their country, their business, their services, and it doesn't matter whether you do RMCs or DSPs or both of it or everything. Be who you need to be in the business you need to be in, and be proud of what you're doing.
Wow.
I was just going to add that because RMCs are an important part of this industry and of this world, we do partner with RMCs. We don't do direct business with them one-on-one, that we have agreements with them. Now we've started to get those GDPR wonderful things. We are certified, but we have to sign all these documentations that I go. But anyway, what we do, our relationships with RMCs are client-directed, because we don't fit their model. Clearly, as you've heard, we're a flat fee. We're not a 1 day, 2 day, 5 days. So when anyone sends me an RFP that says, "Can you do a 1 day, 2 day?" we can't do it. If you want to do a full VIP comprehensive service, happy to participate, but we don't do 1, 2, 5. So we don't fit the matrix of any of the RMCs. We do partner with them. Some of you have seen us at the BGRS meetings and whatever. We do, but it's client-directed. So the clients have determined that we do a service level that they want for their very specific assignees, and they say to the RMC, "You must work with Intrepid on this." We have a great relationships and partners. Now, one funny experience that I had many, many years ago, and I really was fast on my feet, Sophie. I was. Because the client turned to me and said, "I don't understand when we," and this is not denigrating, because again, it's just the way service levels are done when you're in a very large company and versus when you're a small company, and you can be much more nimble. So she said, "When we give you someone, we never hear from them. It all goes fast. We don't, nothing. When we go to our RMC, it's layers, levels, and the assignees keep calling us." So very quickly, I turned around and I said, I was very surprised, but I'm impressed with myself. I said, "Well, the difference is we're the tugboat and they're the Queen Mary. So the Queen Mary needs lots of tugboats to pull it out of the pier, out of the dock, to get going. As the tugboat, we can do circles around that. The other difference is that in order for the Queen Mary to start, for the captain to turn that engine, he's got to go through multiple layers down to the engine room, who has to call this one, that one, that one, before he's given permission to do that. By then, the tugboat, as I said, has swam back and forth across that river for many, many times. So we're the tugboat, they're the Queen Mary. Sometimes you need the Queen Mary because the tugboat doesn't go in the ocean. But the tugboat can move a lot faster. It's more nimble.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. Can you add something to that?
I probably don't need this because my whispers are like a low roar. We have a client that probably many of you have served.
MJ, why don't you say who you are?
MJ from AKA, similar boutique hotel residences. We don't fit everybody's model either. Much of the business we do is client direct and one-offs. We have a client who was moving the person who was going to oversee the HR function. And the person said, very high level, coming from Asia Pacific, I want to go through the process the way an assignee at my level would. And I got a call on Sunday at 7 p.m. saying, you got to drive up, take this person on a tour. They didn't have DSP services, right? It brought to light how important it was that they needed this because this person could not go through the process. They had so many special high-touch needs. For example, she was staying in a suite at the Pierre. That's clearly not how a normal assignee at her level is handled. What did it do? Is they signed themselves up quickly for DSPs for certain level, assignees. But it's all being willing to do all this little stuff. There I was on a Monday morning at 5 o'clock, getting on a train, going to the Pierre Hotel with a car service, bringing them to AKA because at Central Park, a one-bedroom residence is a bargain compared to the suite at the Pierre that she'd been hauled up in through the hotel program for 2 weeks. The point is, it showed her that they need the files before they take the assignment. So recruiting, this kind of firewall gets broken down between the travel program or recruiting and relocation. All of a sudden, at the recruiting process, they realized they needed to start with destination services, not once the file ends up on a mobility, in an RMC's process.
MJ and I had an experience a while back with one of her properties. We had this prince concept that we were talking about. Not really a prince, but he came from a very privileged family in Singapore. His personal email address was @onmyfathersyacht.com. His wife's email address was @bling.com.
Oh, geez.
I kid you not. They got to their property, the Central Park, it was the Central Park property. The first thing we did is I think it was Noel was running the property at the time. So Noel, the first thing we did was we had 2 properties waiting for him, 2 apartments. And sure enough, because I said, he's going to reject whatever the first one is, he will reject it. And sure enough, he did. It was the better of the 2, but he rejected it and took the other one, because that's just who we knew we were handling. Then he ordered in rooms food from a restaurant. He made the delivery guy wash his dishes before he would pay him. And then the last one was when his wife arrived. She took a nap in the afternoon. She called downstairs and she said, we need a turn down service because my wife, has woken up from her nap and we need the bed made. Well, that's not corporate housing. So Noel called me, and I said to him, what will it take to make this happen? And he told me, and I called the client, and I said, look, we need to have this resolved because you want them happy. This is how they will be happy. So we paid the extra for her to get the extra turn-down service when she needed it. And they accommodated, thank you.
Yeah, it's the extra mile, huh?
That extra mile.
We don't really have time to throw one of the last questions that really came out of the survey. Where is the next direct customer. How much time have we got left? 10 minutes? 10 minutes? There are direct customers still to be found out there, and there are still companies. My own experience only relates to tiny little Belgium, but there are spin-offs of the university that work only with expats and still think they can do everything in-house. Of course, that's the academic university spirit that says we do everything better than everybody else and they don't need help, but they do. After a while, they grow too big, they do. There's always more, and I was thinking of you again, Sylvie, because you told us in the beginning that you already went out there and found a few new direct customers. What is your experience on that, on the nowadays? Do you feel like I do, that there's quite a few still out there that need our help and that are willing to work with the direct customer spirit?
Absolutely. And to take this away, don't go after people like Pepsi Cola. It's never going to work. Leave them exactly where they are, because it's where they need to be. But there are a huge amount of small companies, and I'm convinced that they exist in 90% of the countries this world has to offer, that have smaller numbers of employees. Go with companies that, or try to pitch at companies that, quite frankly, the RMCs don't give a toss about. Companies that have...
The photos was really nice.
I was going to say something else, and then I thought, don't swear. She got called out for the butt like 4 times. I was never going to do that again. So... Exactly, and there are so many companies that have little movement, and by little movement, anywhere between 2 and 20. And I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's hard work, yeah, because these people also don't have an idea of what they are doing. But it also creates the biggest added value, and it creates the biggest personal relationship that you can make with these people by helping them. This is what you need to do, and have you thought of this? And no, he's going there and there. He might also need a driver's license, or and so I think there's plenty of work, but I think it comes down to doing it well, and also doing your research well on what companies are there and who are they and what do they do. And
Madalena, can I add a little question to that? Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
you first.
I
You
just
first.
also quickly wanted to add. In Germany, I agree, we do have a lot of small and medium-sized companies, and I would be never interested in IMC. But sorry, the other thing we also see, there's still not enough knowledge. There are still so many companies out there who don't have a clue that relocation exists.
Then give them a reason to have that knowledge.
Yeah.
Give them a reason to have that knowledge. Create a breakfast for HR professionals. Partner with somebody else in a complementary industry. For many, many years, I used to partner with what is now Court, but it was a different company. It was called AFR Furniture. I go back a long way. And we used to do these breakfasts where we broadcast out to people that I knew, people that they knew, and we would have these breakfasts and have an informative speaker or panel on different subjects. And it was an opportunity for them to learn something. Again, you're giving them value added, but you're also building your reputation as an expert in the field. And so having a reasonable breakfast, an inexpensive breakfast, a place to host it that's a good place, and an early meeting. Again, each country is going to be different. Some countries don't do anything early. But in our case, if we ran the meetings at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, started them at 8 o'clock, they were done by 10, they could get back to work, and they were fine. It built up a reputation. The more you can be involved with these things, I was telling the ladies here, I took on the chairmanship of the International Human Resources Special Interest Group for the local SHRM chapter up in Westchester, which is a suburb of New York City, and it was supposed to be a 2-year term. I'm still running it, and it started in 1998. So the 2-year term has got a different timeline than I thought. But it's been very good because we have a lot of corporate attendees. We also have service providers, but the corporate get priority for the seating. We have an international law firm that hosts their has given us their meeting room, their conference room, and they provide a nice little breakfast, so there's no charge for anything at all. And they come, and one of our cardinal rules is there is no solicitation of anybody corporate, either during or after. Because if we find out that you've gone after somebody that came to the meeting, you will be uninvited to the next one. So we do have that open. Nobody is marketing to them. We are just providing them with information, and we only have corporate speakers at those events. So there's no sales pitch for anything. It's all about corporate to corporate, and we're just there as facilitators. But it opens the door. Hopefully one day they have somebody coming, they'll remember.
Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to say. No. I mean, I confirm that I think that it's important to make us visible in our own market. So it can be to make sure that we have a good Google rank from LinkedIn, so apart from the social side, and then identify the most important HR events and conferences, be there, sponsor them, invite your clients if you are a sponsor or a facilitator. We also, for example, have these one-to-one meetings with the corporates at these events. Nothing happens immediately after unless a lucky strike, but for sure they will remember you. Even after years, I've been contacted by companies who met me in a conference years back, and HR move from a company to another, so they can meet you today and they have no global mobility at all, but in 2 years' time they might be somewhere else where they do have mobility. So I think that it's very important from that point of view to organize and to be proactive in your own markets as well.
So, okay.
What you said about the loyalty and the relationships with your HR people, we had something, and this is very unique, I think. Although in today's world, maybe not so much, but we had a client, Merrill Lynch, before they got acquired. They were with us for like 11 years. In the 11 years, we went through 9 different heads of mobility, HR heads of mobility. It was like a revolving door, which is a challenge. But I have to say, each one of them, when they moved to another company, brought us in. And that's how we expanded our world, was thanks to them.
So word to mouth is definitely important, right? I think we could go on for days and days, but before I let I'll do that in a minute. Before giving Peggy the final words, our intellectual content consultant. I love the title too, you know. It's great. I wanted to throw this into the room that it's very important that we listen to the customer. It's very important that we speak his or her language to be able to understand what they want us to do for them. And it would not be me if I wouldn't tell you to encourage other people to be able to listen and to speak the language. And that's what our charity this year is all about. ZKM is about helping young people to speak the German language, to honor their language from wherever they come, whether it's Arabic or another language, so that they have both languages. But they may be the next direct customer relocation generation. Give them a chance to speak this language and be generous. Over to you, Peggy.
Very well said. Thank you, Anita. And actually, what you just said, I'd like to just touch on that as well. You must listen to your clients, and you must implement what it is that your clients want you to do. You are Eura's clients. We listen to what it is that you want from us. That's why this session is taking place. We've had many comments saying, why are you not representing the 50% of our members who do 50% or more of their work within the direct sphere? And just to bring you a very small anecdote before we finish, David, you're in the room. David Trickey from TCO International and I had a meeting last summer in Cambridge. We were just talking about how we could work together and where the synergies were. And we were just talking about the sort of DNA of Eura and how it works and how it was formed. And he said, well, you know, how do you decide what you do when you go forward with new projects? And I said, well, it's really interesting you say that. We have a test. We kind of call it the Madalena Test. And the Madalena Test is if something that we're doing isn't going to work for the core members of Eura who founded it 21 years ago, it's not going to work. if it's not going to work for your company, if it's not going to work for the majority of the Euro members who do a mixture of supply chain, a mixture of direct client work, then we need you to tell us that we're on the wrong track. You are our customers. So thank you for being here, and thank you guys. Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 3:29. I hope you've enjoyed this. I really want to thank this great panel. And like I said, I want to thank all of you, too, for coming, for filling out the survey if you did. And even if you didn't, thank you for coming. And because really, as Dom said, we need to know. We need to know what you want to hear. We don't want to be the organization that, nobody comes into a room because everybody's having a client meeting, which is really, really important, and we understand that. And somebody yesterday said, make sure you find the right mix between your client meetings and the sessions. So that's really important to us, and we heard you loud and clear for the last, 2 years about what Dom just said. So I'm excited, I'm really excited that this many people came to this session, and so my thank yous are up there to all of you, and to all of the Euro members, and to Anita for really keeping us on track, and for our 3 great panelists. And then on to the next slide. Sorry about the clicker here. So please let us know whenever you can. You'll have an opportunity to fill out an evaluation, of course. But this is so important to us, particularly really, well, to everybody, but to me. I'm going to be around for a while with Euro, helping plan the coming up conferences in, can't tell you where, but anyway, so we really, huh? You were almost there. I can't tell you where. So really, those questions we just put up there to really to encourage you to stay in touch with us. So please feel free. I know everybody would love to hear. We are, yeah.
We all mentor each other.
Well, if we're a mentor with the blue thing. Do you have a blue one? If we're
we're blue.
This is really exciting that we're a mentor with the blue badge, and it kind of really means that we've been around for a very long time. But that means we might have some wisdom for you. So thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you for coming.